Hello, man. Hello, man. Hello, man. Hello, man. Hello, man. It's kind of funny if I let that run, it'll just run in an endless loop back. It'll be just 2 hours or 3 hours. I could just let it go 8 hours of hello, man. Hello, man. Hello, man. Hello, man. That's the world we live in. So hello, man. Today we're going to talk a little bit about self and the differences between self and identity and beliefs. And most people will associate self with your identity or self-identity, your pre-given identity. And maybe that's not exactly correct because we see people misidentify themselves all the time. Some people that are things that are important to them, they don't believe they are, and or people can't see themselves for what they are or what their self is and everything. And I see this a lot on the internet too, as the misidentification of self and who I am. I am me, and that's all it is. And Buddha had some pretty interesting concepts about self. His self is to deny self of everything, which I wasn't too much of a Confucianist or Buddhist because it's really Confucianal or confusing. Yeah. That would be an idea of total skepticism, and we deny everything. We deny even self, but we don't do that as Mgtow's self. What I am in myself is generally my self-interest. I am self, but not even that. A lot of people look at self-interest as being self, and it's important to be self-interested, but it's not generally what you are. What is yourself? Today I was looking at Doug, and Doug was we were having a discussion about his behavior when he raped the other two dogs, and he apologized for that, and but he never seen, I don't think, the himself in that. And I was just being myself. I was just being a dog, and well, dogs would be dogs. And then he stayed out in the rain for 2 hours, and I said, well, Doug's just being himself, and that's pretty much all Doug can be, is self. But when we think about it that way from an animal point of view, I know that was kind of tricky. But we think about it from what is a dog and the animal's point of view. Let me kick my sock. Oh, yeah, let me kick my shoes off here. Ah, that feels good. Doug can't help but to be himself. What he is just he's a dog, and he will be a dog. And when he sees another dog, he's going to attack another dog. Not anymore. I think we're getting Doug close to his final demise. So we were asking questions about what he feels bad for in life and everything, and he really doesn't feel bad about anything because he's a dog, and a dog's self is very much different than a human self. So we can see something in that. We have there's a difference. Your beliefs and your self-awareness. So most people go, I'm aware, but do you have awareness? I'm aware that there's a door. I'm aware that there's stuff around me. I'm aware that, but are you aware of other people? Are you aware that they think like you do? Are you aware that they have the same pains and trials as you do? And all those things. And I would say that was awareness, and there's a difference in that. And self comes from that same part of the brain, and it came from that same part of thinking. What is self? Self, something that it's hard to put some people would just go with my identity is myself. What I can make myself is myself. And that's not really true because like I said, it's so easy to trick yourself about what you really are in life. Doug is essentially, I don't think animals in the way they are would ask themselves about self. So it tells us a lot about human beings. Doug wouldn't go, what am I? Doug knows he's a dog. He does dog things. That means raping the dogs up the street, fighting when he can. He would eat the whole chicken if I gave it to him. He wouldn't concern me with anything, and that's Doug. But he doesn't concern himself with self. He doesn't ask himself questions. He doesn't. he doesn't involve those things with what other dogs think of him, or what other humans. He doesn't. I don't think he really cares what I think of him. Uh, so he'll do pretty much what he wants to do, and he's very passive about it too. So a dog is a dog, and a human, we can see the difference between not knowing of self. Doug's just going to do what he wants. So my argument with that would have been, we a lot of people look at lions, and they look at the behavior of animals in the wild, and they go, well, humans should be predatory because towards other humans, because lions are just. And that's such a cop out. It's an intellectual cop out when we look at like bugs and humans and apes and say that, well, that's myself. I'm that thing. I could be that thing. But when I look at my dog, I know that he has no self. He has no awareness of self, or anything like that. Jamaican coffee. It's delicious. You got to get some. I should put the link to the best price Jamaican coffee that I found at a reasonable quality. But we're talking about self today and not coffee. And coffee can be a choice of self too, whatever you like. You're getting closer. I think Descartes he says, what are these things within me that make me closer to the self? And do I like coffee? And is that something my brain does? Now you're getting closer to yourself. What kind of coffee? I know people that drink Maxwell House their whole life, like Maxwell House coffee. I don't personally like Maxwell House coffee. I think it's shit. And that tells a lot about their self. There's people that go through life liking things like self-suffrage, like the Christians do with women. And, you got to suffer for that. And they believe that is their self. And we get into the intrinsic areas of belief. And that's what I seen today. I think it started asking me a lot of questions about self and what I am. I am what I am. Popeye would say, I am what I am. And I think he was in more closeness to what self was. And it's not self-identity. Popeye was a sailor, but I don't think that was Popeye's identity. Popeye was a white knight. Popeye was always simping for that. I can't remember her name right now, but I don't think that was himself. I think them things were out of control, sort of like a dog was out of control, sort of like Dougie when he rapes the dogs in the neighborhood, and I can't hold him responsible, and I can't tell him that Dougie, stop raping the dogs in the neighborhood, and then my horror when I catch him, but that is Dougie, and then when we get this. Olive oil, that's it. Thanks, Orange Partisan. I couldn't remember her name for the life of me. Olive oil, and he was sipping for olive oil all the time. Olive oil, what a name! I seen the episode where they named her Olive Oil too, but I didn't think of that. But when Dougie does those things, he can't be held responsible for self. So what our self is, we have to make good decisions in self and stuff like that. And then identity becomes a big part in making good decisions, at least, for looks, for what we present and everything. And but it still doesn't explain self. What is self? Self, like I said, you're in touch with, I like coffee. That's what I like. Something deep and down inside of me. There's there's the internal what you are, and the internal knowledge center of what we are. And I can't remember the exact words what Descartes would talk about, what it was inside of us that makes us us and everything, and individuality. We hear a lot of talk about individuality, and I'm going to be this individual person, but I don't think of individuality as something you could obtain by being like a hipster. He wears a jean jacket and a Led Zeppelin shirt and some painter pants and a funny hat, and he thinks that's his self, and that's not really himself. He's just a hipster, and it's almost ridiculous. That doesn't make him, and it doesn't improve his self. Yeah. Male duck is, yeah. So So looking for self identity, and we often hear about the Mgtow identity. Uh, Somewhere this has to go to Mgtow because this is a Mgtow thing. And today I was listening to. I often go over to other places that are not friendly to Mgtows. This is my way of getting the word out. I believe that if I stay in Mgtow and then we all just, yo, great, we're all Mgtows, woo, nothing gets done then. But you have to go out to places where they're gonna look at you and they're going to they're going to judge you by your beliefs, and then I think they believe that is their selves, and beliefs aren't necessarily, beliefs are, we explained that the other day. Beliefs are totally different than self, and sometimes we wrap ourselves up in the philosophy of I am what I believe, and then and like I said, self is more from a neurological dominion, some place that somewhere deep down inside of you, there's some self that makes you you and makes you totally different than everybody else, simply, by the way it is. Um, there's a lot of different areas in self too, that make up the total man. But like, we all have to wonder what would make Dougie's self, what would make a dog self. It's the same thing that makes yourself. Dougie has no consciousness of right or wrong. He just does exactly what that little lizard brain tells him to do, and that's his self. So we kind of know that in self, you know, uh, if we do what our lizard brain tells us to do, that's kind of self. And in philosophy, and I'm trying to get back to the page. I lost the page. In philosophy, the question is, what am I? I am me in that. But when I'm looking at people when I'm looking at people on different pages which have totally different beliefs from Mgtow, the misogyny thing comes up, and it's almost believed that Mgtows are misogynist because somehow that's their self. Uh, and that could be farther from the truth there. Um, Someone once said to me, "What would it be horrible if Mgtow was just misogyny and that's it?" And they replaced it like the Paul Elam, the misogynist, or whatever he called himself, the happy misogynist. He just went with that idea, and Mgtow would be a horrible place if we ever really just said, "Oh, we're misogynists and everything." You have to ask yourself counter questions to misogyny, which is misandry, and does that have equal bases in their selves? Can we label most women? Most women hate men and hate us for, and that's just really misandric in that. And so I think in all, if we did the honest talk in that, so we aren't, what people label us either. I can't do that with Doug. I can't say that Doug is what I'd label, because in the end of the day, Doug is just what he is. He's a dog. He's a white dog. He's a fluffy dog. There's a lot of descriptive words with Doug, what Doug is, but it doesn't label his self because he doesn't have self. He's just a dog, and he doesn't understand things like we. He has no beliefs. He just runs on purely. So as humans, we can get an idea from the dog to the human. When people start labeling other people, they're aware of other people's positions and belief, and then they believe that belief makes them what they are. And I don't know if that's quite true either. So identity is not self. You can take alter identities, and I've seen really creepy instances of people taking alter identities, and we do this online too. Most people don't show themselves. They take an alter identity, and sometimes they take a fierce identity. We talked a little about 100 or 200 videos ago about taking on the fierce avatar and the fierce identity. What were you saying about yourself? Are you saying that in the real world you lack that identity in yourself, so you portray it on an avatar which nobody can see you. That was a kind of really weird thing that we were going over that one day, about the fierce identities that we put out. And I think that's the desire for Zarustra. Some guys are just at that point where they desire to be Zarustra, but they don't know quite how to get to be Zarustra. They don't know quite how to do that thing. And that's really easy. You just enact your agency. Self and self-belief and agency have a lot to do with it. I think men have more self just simply because they're more aware of their agency, and they're able to enact that thing in themselves that says, I'm just going to do this. And I'm not going to be apologetic. I'm not going to be the apologist about what I do. And that's more closer to the dog than but in the dog, like I said, the dog's just gonna do what he perceives as right. He'd eat the whole chicken and leave me nothing if I would let him. And he's often done that. My sandwich, Doug, where's my sandwich? My sandwich is still missing, and I've been looking for it for almost a year now. So, so a lot of questions and stuff in identity. Most people wrap themselves up in identity. And I think that's where we get it wrong. But the thing I was looking at today was from the standpoint of other groups. When I go around other groups, I know what I am in self, and I'm a pretty good guy, and I always give I'm a pretty tolerant guy. Dougie would never do such a thing as take my sandwich. I know he wouldn't. He knows he wouldn't either. Yeah. But from the standpoint of other groups, that doesn't make that yourself. I know what I am, but my Mgtow thing is beliefs I have. I wasn't born a Mgtow. Mgtow was by cause, and if everything would have went right in my life and everything would have went perfect, it would have never made me doubt that them things that I believe now. So my beliefs are separate. So when I go over to other pages, what I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to open up their way of thinking. Oh, now we're getting down to that self part of us, the way we think. And I was thinking about that a lot today when the page that I was on, he was having his podcast, and he often goes off about misogyny here, misogyny there. And he said something like, if we can clear the board on, he was doing deconstructionism. If you can clear the board on the Constitution and reassemble the Constitution in today's world of modernity and in today's world of gender politics and everything, he says he would put misogyny on the on the list of beliefs that everybody should have. And I said, well, you can't put misogyny on the beliefs of, because you would have to talk about misandry, and then you would have to talk about with every positive is a contrapositive. So that's the way you think about it. Don't go off the board with that kind of thinking. And I don't think what he was actually saying is anti-misogyny is a right. So in that, if you have a right for two genders, anti-misandry would be a right too. So we're doing it properly. If we are doing it, the gender dynamics argument, we are doing it properly. Right now, it doesn't need to be a constitutional law that says you can't be a misogynist. So, but in thinking about that, I was thinking why I was there. And what I do is I generally don't spend times moving around. And when I'm on the internet, I generally don't spend times moving around the manosphere and applauding each other and say, great job, buddy. This just keeps spreading the word, because I'm not really doing nothing in that. It's an echo chamber. It's an empty echo chamber inside here of everybody patting each other on the back and saying how Mgtow is growing. But I really don't see Mgtow growing at that fast of a rate, because when I go out there and I look for places to spread the word. I don't go out to other Mgtow places to spread the word of Mgtow. What would the Christians call that? You're preaching to the choir then. You got to go into places where you're not going to be welcome. And I was on this guy's show, and he welcomes me to a point, and he knows who I am, and he welcomes me to a point, and he believes in tolerance. But there's often the words of misandry. He thinks he's going to change me too. But when we get, and that's the thing, when we get people coming here, a Mgtow is what a Mgtow is, and that's pretty close to as self as possible. So when we get people coming here, they think they're going to change you. And I know each and every one of you have a personal opinion on the way people come to us and try to change us. It's not going to happen. Me trying to change Doug, not going to happen. The only thing that changes people is environmentally things in their life changes, and they change the way they have to do things. If I don't have a house around me and I'm living in my van, I have to change the way I do things. And that doesn't have nothing to do with myself. That has something to do with my existence and getting a roof over my head and making sure I don't freeze to death in a cold Ohio winter. So those things are off the question. But in retrospect to that, we have a difficult: is your house yourself? Is your car yourself? Is your clothes yourself? Because those are parts of identity and everything, and they become sort of you in a ritualistic sort of fascia way, the fascia of you. But that's not really yourself, because I'm sure people's image of themselves deep down inside wouldn't match the image of their self. It wouldn't match the image of themselves of the person they see when they look in the mirror, or the person people see. The person that when people look at me, they could have just such a huge, vast amount of emotions, ranging from "Hello, how you doing? You're the best looking guy in the world" to "I hate that guy." That's not me. That's not you. None of those things are you, because perception is so skewed in this lifetime. And I would think that anybody that would hate me wasn't looking at, this pretty. Jesus, me and Doug talked about that for a little, how pretty I am, and he was like agreeing with me. He's like, Doug was like, "Geez, you're almost as pretty as me." Jesus. But I don't think Doug really knows I don't think Doug has any idea how he looks to the other world. And it's a difficult identity question with people, what they perceive themselves as deep inside. And the ego has a lot to do with that. And self-confidence has a lot to do with that. Now we're getting closer to self-confidence. So what kind of confidence do you have? Have you been beat up, but so bad that I got to stand up for a second? Oh, my knee is just killing me, and I have to stretch out because my muscles tend to when I don't, because of the knee, they tend to pull. And I don't want that to happen, or else I'll have to cut this off real quickly. But if it does happen and I cut it off real quickly, you know why. Ooh, and that self is your physical body yourself too? And that's a good question. I don't think it's self. My injuries don't make myself. I got coffee all up in my storage area. So what we like is you get closer to finding out yourself and what you like and what you don't like. Your beliefs don't mix, because beliefs are somehow malformed. And that would be political beliefs too, and that's where I was at on a page today, where the political beliefs and his idea of misogyny is. And I've seen this guy actually cry on God, there was a lot of coffee in there. I seen this guy actually cry one day, and I said, "Wow, that's so queer. I can't. I have a hard time doing that myself." But hey, it's nice to see somebody else do that, and I wish I could get in touch with that kind of emotion sometimes. um, but but people have extreme feelings, and I think that them things are closer to self than self. So I was looking at his self, and he has extreme feelings, and he has extreme feelings in connection with his idealized female, and how somebody's abusing his idealized female, and his thoughts and everything. And I thought, well, that's not really self either, and that's just some people are born highly emotional, and I don't know if the pool is not the oaf proof. Can't drain the freeze hazard. Yeah, so when I was over there, I was asking myself a lot of questions about how I do this thing too, and what myself is. And they asked me a lot of questions about when I changed here on YouTube, when I changed sort of identities about a year and a half ago, maybe. And I started seeing things different about casual cruelty and how we treat people. And I do believe that everybody should be treated. Casual cruelty is just something that's it's abhorrent, and we do it for defense mechanisms. And then he got into that a little today, and he was talking about his version of casual cruelty to his version of self, to his version of what he believes the world is. And I seen that it was all becoming just flawed, and and that all goes back to a single belief. Most people, you got to ask yourself something. When people come around here and they want to change you, they want you to be more like them, to make it easier on them to interpret the world. And if everybody in the world was the same as you can interpret the world. You can interpret the world quite correctly, because there would be no differences in people. So they want you, and I think humans do this a whole lot, and it tells on their self and their and what they are. Fearful would be the name. When you look out at this, like I said, you can go through a myriad depending on the person. When you look at Joe, you can go through a myriad of opinions about who I am, but then none of them are really me. And when I was over there, one of the questions I asked myself was how am I going to? I was thinking about going down that whole line and that whole process of how was I going to convince somebody to be something that I want them to be. Or and then I says, no, I don't really want someone to be something. I want people to understand Mgtow, and I want people to understand how we think, and how we want equality in this world, and how we don't want to be the protectors and providers, and how father is such. And I want them to believe like I believe, but I want them to get it in a more natural process. How do we go about things in Mgtow? Sometimes or it's just not good for Mgtow. And we go over, and I see this a lot because a few Mgtows do show up, and I watch it a lot, and at other places where I go and visit. And I'm trying to do my thing, where I'm just trying to be nice. I'm not a casually cruel person. And the only way to catch bees is with honey, really. And then they come over, and then they'll use the one was the killer of thoughts, and that was his avatar. And I know that's a that's a. And then he just raged out for a few minutes on the page, and there's a lot of people. There's probably 14,000 people on this page during a podcast. And then the killer of thoughts avatar, the fierce avatar, or the fierce cognomen, or the fierce identity was coming in, and he raged out for a while. And there was another one, I can't remember his name. It was that same old kind of thing, that same old kind of some insult to the female, and then they raged out. And then what I see from being around this page a lot is that doesn't work. The only way to catch flies are with honey, and the only way to catch people's imagination is with logic and philosophy. And so you be nice, you explain your position on it, and no matter what's said to you, you never lowball, go lowball on this thing, and you never start yelling back. The only thing that really bothers me with that crowd, and the only thing that really gets me, is their inability to understand incels and the pejorative. They use incel in a pejorative use. And I said, never use incel in a pejorative use, because these are disadvantaged people. And would you call and that's the same argument we have with calling people retarded, or calling people like, their disadvantage becomes them, and then you're just taking advantage of that. So why do it with incels? Why is it okay to do it with incels? And that's a question I often have with that crowd. It's not okay to do it with feminists, but it's okay to do it with incels. And then I explain, would you beat up a disabled person? Are you that same kind of person? Because that's what you're doing. Knowing incel the way I know it, because I am the incel whisperer. I am the incel whisperer. And in working through this thing, I find that just important. And that's casual cruelty too. You're doing the same thing that you don't want other people doing to you. You don't want other people being casually cruel to you. Nobody's going to change your mind. And that's why I was thinking about this. Nobody's going to change my mind on being a Mgtow and myself. And that's what I am. I am a Mgtow, and that has a lot to do with myself. Nobody's going to change my mind on being a Mgtow by coming here and saying cruel things to me. And it just flies off my back. And I just wonder, they just quantify that, how ignorant the world is. And I can't do that over on the other side too. I can't go over there and start yelling, all you cuck-servatives, or all you Libby bastards, you're all a bunch of freaks, and that's not going to work. And I don't believe that. Me not being a person that does casual cruelty, I don't believe that I just believe they're echoing and they're some things they heard, and they have some beliefs about things that would be convenient for them to obtain. And that's what you're saying. When you take a belief, you're really taking a belief that suits you, and that would be good for you. It doesn't mean it's going to be good for everybody else. It just means it's going to be good for you. And that's how we determine what's good for most people. Oliver Wendell Holmes, the pragmaticist and Supreme Court justice, was a pragmaticist, an American pragmaticist. He says you're not going to do that. You're not going to convince people about other things. You're not going to do that by yelling at them. You're not going to do that. You're going to do that one way, and that's going to be to what is good, he says. And good is what's good for good is what works out best for the most people. And that's the only way we can determine good, because one man's good is not another man's good idea. Is not a reality for some people. So all we could do, he says, when we make these judgments and stuff, is do what's the best for most people, and then I will consider myself good, because that's the closest thing I can get to good in that general sense. Because we are also flawed, and in pragmatics, the first thing we realize is that we are flawed, and we can't know everything. And anybody that ever portrays themselves as not being flawed is just probably acting, and probably he's probably the farthest thing from self as as a person can be. An actor would be the opposite of self. Is actors. If you're acting out something else, that's the farthest thing away from self there is, and there's probably a real correlation between Camus's clown and actors, and then the what do you call it, the world of absurdity in actors and stuff. We look at that in the world of in theater. We look at the world of absurdity, and they try to act out absurdity sometimes in movies, and it's very interesting. I always look for movies that are absurd, like The Stranger. When he's talking about The Stranger, and what the most read book ever in history was The Stranger, and he was talking about the world of the absurd. And but yeah, so that's going really kind of off here. And your absurd self is not your self. What I'm saying is your absurd self is not yourself if you're acting it. And we can get a good view of self through the actor too. If you're acting out a part, if you're dressing like a clown, if you're dressing like a hipster, that's truly not you. What is it that you like? What shirts do you like to wear? What pants do you? In that, it tells you about what you like, the cotton material, the fabric, and everything, and all that, whatever makes you happy in that sense. And what makes you happy uh, is different. There's vast differences between what makes some people happy and what makes other people happy. I know a pink shirt would make Elton John happy, and I did watch that movie yesterday. It was Elton John's the Rocket Man, and it was a very, very absurd movie. For me, at least, it was a very, very absurd movie. But in that, I kind of like those things. Now, I didn't realize that Elton John was he was a product of a single baby mama home, that and trying to come to grips with that, and finally at the end of the movie, and that what bust him through, and it's a very good Mgtow movie to watch, Rocket Man, if you get a chance to watch it, because at the end of the movie, he was in an AA meeting and he was drugging himself to death, and he was very flamboyant at that time, and he was very much a clown. He dressed like a clown. He acted like a clown. He was very talented, but that had nothing to do with himself at that point. Uh, his final breakthrough was yelling at his mother and just saying, "Man, whatever you were telling me, that was just garbage, and I'm just gonna be." And then you notice in a certain period of Elton John's life, he lost all that flamboyancy. He lost the clown in himself, and then he adopted two kids, got married. In the sense, in the sense that he knows marriage because he was gay, but he became almost a normal person after that, after discovering self, and discovering that his mother had so screwed him up. A single baby mama screwed this boy up. So it's a good movie to watch, but you got to watch closely. And there was an absurd part where he lost his flamboyancy, and I said, well, AA cured Elton John of being gay. I was like, I said, no, AA cured Elton John of being a total ass and being flamboyant, and the stories and the cognitive therapy and everything. I have been taking a cognitive therapy course, but I've been laxing lately because of my knee and the ability to actually sit and do those things right now, and stand and do those things. And I have to sit, stand all day long. I just can't do one or the other, or lay down, and I'm not going to lay down. So, so he grew up. Yeah, he grew up. And he worked through what his mother, he caught his mother with another man in a car, and she made it about she was doing it. And I've heard this from women too. She made it about she was doing it for him because his father was ultra, he was he was an ultra male, like my father probably was too, and I never held it against him that he couldn't hug and he couldn't feel emotions, and I have that problem too. I don't feel emotions, and we were talking about that earlier with the guy that I was watching on. He felt emotions too strongly, and it's not a bad thing for males to not be in touch with those feelings and stuff. But you can see in that kind of you can see in that kind of thing that Elton John, she said she was just being riding the carousel or whatever, and she needed an excuse for her her immorality, and that was the excuse. I love you so much that I left your father for another man because he couldn't feel emotions. We see that. I seen that at the end. I did. Why do you? When I asked the question to women that escape marriage and everything, and that's one of the things. Well, I did it for the kids, and that's such a bullshit. Such a bull. No, you did it for yourself. You and is what I say. And let's get down to the real deep of this thing. You didn't do it for the kids, because a father that is unavailable emotionally doesn't make a bad father. That probably makes a better father. I had one of those, and he was a better father. He's when I wanted a new bike, he would say, "What's wrong with your old bike?" And I said, "Well, it's broke." And he says, "That's exactly. You're gonna have to fix that." And then he'd come home with some bearings and everything. He'd throw them at me and go, "Now fix it." And with that, I learned how to, repack bearings. I learned and then I was shocked the first time I did it on a bicycle. And I'm shocked the first time. It's like, wow, it's like I just did that. I fixed this bike. And he says, "Yes, exactly. That's what I was trying to teach you." And that came from a position of love. And he says, "Now you know how to fix every bearing in this world." And that gives you an advantage over other people. It gives you a mechanical advantage. And he did a lot of things like that with electricity, and he did some of the things was rather cruel too, but it was funny. And that was his way of love. So was he was the male emotionally unattached, or was his self emotionally unattached? I don't think. It was just redefined in a different area where he showed his feelings about things. He would, if you didn't know how to do these things, that was his idea of abhorrence. So back to the original issue of beliefs. Uh, a father's belief in what is good for their children is sometimes not matches the mother's belief of her getting a cock carousel, riding that. She would lie and say that was, and that's her belief. But was it good for the children? No, absolutely not. A father's love, teaching a boy how to navigate through this world, is not perceived by women the same way we perceive it. When you teach a boy how to cut a grass, you teach him how to make money for the rest of his life. And that's basically what you're trying to do as a man. You're teaching a man how to hunt, a man how to fish. The old adage of it's really cliche, and I hate to say it, but it's how some people understand. Teach a man how to fish, and you feed him for the rest of his life. Give a man give a man $1 and you feed him for a day. And I don't know why that them two things go to altruism. There would be off the field argument with me. Does altruism have anything to do with with basic knowledge of life? No, not really. But it sounds good, doesn't it? All the shirts you have is a concert shirt. Yeah, I'm wearing my FUBU shirt today. See that? Yeah, I got my FUBU shirt on because I just think it's funny when I wear a FUBU shirt. It was the last shirt in the drawer too. Yeah, I'm down to laundry day shirts, and I have my yoga pants on and my FUBU shirt, with I just think walking around my house, that's just fucking hilarious. But that's but that's me, and it tells me about how I'm laxing in my laundry, and it tells me about the condition of my existence now and stuff like that. It tells you a lot about yourself. But self, so we understand that self is not it's not your identity. It's not what people see of you. And then back to the uh, is it ever gonna myself is it being a Mgtow, and being a Mgtow for me, and what brought this whole thing up was me being a Mgtow and going out and trying to proselyte people, and then automatically people get a warped sense of what I am, and they'll call me misogynist and that stuff, and that's not self, and that's not what I am. And don't let everybody convince you that's what you are. I could care less. Uh, my caring less about what other people are doing in their lives, and somebody's belief that women are oppressed in this society, which is just lunacy, I think, because there's never been a class of people on the face of the earth that is so well taken care of as American men take care of their women. So are they oppressed? No, I don't think so. I should, that would be lunacy to me, but that's part of the absurd. It's like, what more do you want? Do you want to be the ruler and the king? Ooh, that would be interesting. A totalitarian queen running the country. I think we had that in England, and it's no doubt in my mind that colonialism was crushed during that time, and during the Queen's rule years, and England became a much smaller country, and there's reasons for that. But that's another video. We're talking about self today. What is myself, and what is yourself? And that's a hard question to get down to, and that's probably the answer to self. It's not your individualism. You can wear a FUBU shirt and your glasses on top of your kufi like I do, and that just doesn't generally make that me. I just do it to be funny sometimes. What people perceive you as is not yourself. And I wanted to end this up somewhere where I'm having a hard time bringing it around to the casual cruelty idea, and how we're going to proselyte people in Mgtow. Sometimes you have to be not yourself, is probably what I was trying to say. And most of the time that becomes really easy for people. You can be the actor for once in a while. When you're going over the other pages, and in this, you're trying to explain what a Mgtow is. So you have to present yourself as something else to begin with. Otherwise, they're just going to ban you and throw you out. It was like I was saying with the with the guys that come in over there and they automatically rage out. They just get kicked out, and then they don't change nothing. And in that getting kicked out, they just quantify the other people's idea of the misogynist Mgtow, the misogynist male, the misogynist MRN. That does Mgtow and an MRA no good at all. Anti-feminism does the MRA no good at all, because it just makes you into what they say you are. And Paul Elam embracing the happy misogynist, and then now you look at the MRA, the condition of the MRA, you can see how that thing actually turned and destroyed the MRA, and that's what I don't want for Mgtow. Mgtows are smarter, and generally we know that you're going to only catch you're only going to catch flies with honey. You can catch flies other ways, but that's just an analogy. You're not going to catch them by swinging things at them. They're going to fly away. Most people are that way too. You're not going to catch anybody into Mgtow, and someday at least 42% of those people over there are probably males that are going to sometime in their life need to reevaluate or reconstruct their identity, because of divorce, because of everything that's going to happen in this world, because of unforeseen things. And if you're there while that's happening, you can direct them to a place that's friendly to reconstructing your identity in a better way. That's Mgtow, and that's why I always say Mgtow is a reconstruction of our identity after you've torn everything down, you deconstructed it when you've seen that the world is absurd. The world's a big clown car, and we don't want to do that anymore. So we jumped off, we deconstructed, we reconstructed everything. We're putting things back in place that make us happy, that are more ourself, that represent us better deep down inside. Someday we'll get to see the ultimate self in a MGTOW, and I don't know what that looks like. What that person would look like. He will be the next Neo, and it'll be interesting to see, and he'll be well accepted by the world, and he'll be a man without beyond reproach. So that's what makes him well accepted. Jamaican coffee, it's just I'm on my second bag, and I have to reorder, and that's the part that hurts. Reordering Jamaican coffee is like expensive, but I'm still enjoying that 2 pounds I ordered about a month and a half ago, and when I did have some extra money, but that ended when I dislocated my knee and ripped the meniscus. So there may not be no Jamaican coffee in my definite future here. And that's sad, but I'm still getting. Well, what I did is this week I went and I bought Dougie a 10-pound bag of chicken, and it was on sale. It was actually, I started figuring out the cost of what I was buying them the Benefals at $2.40 a tub, and then he was like, yeah, they're okay, but he'd rather have a whole chicken, and we argue about that all the day. So I went and I bought them. It was 49 cents a pound, so it's $4.90 for a 10-pound bag. And I thought, wow, that's wonderful. I should get like 10 of those. And so this week he's been eating chicken, and his little face, you should see his little face light up. He looks at me. He can't see, but he kind of puts his head up towards me because he knows I'm in that general direction. And he smiles, and then, we can see our humanity in that. That's where I measure my humanity for a person. The way you treat a dog, or the way you treat somebody less than you, or the way you're not a casually cruel person, and that's how I measure humanity. And like I often say, you can see yourself. God is the smile on a dog, and it's how I treat him, is the kind of person in myself that I am. But this whole thing comes down to we're only going to catch. We're only going to catch MGTOWs from the opposite parties and the people that are dejectors by being there for them when they need us, by catching them when they're falling, by being there. And you're not going to do that by being cruel. You're just going to get kicked off those pages. You're just going to get your shard is going to get thrown in the obstacon. You're not going to be allowed places if you do that. Even in a bar, if you started yelling Mgtow, Mgtow this, Mgtow that, you will not be in there. But there might be some guy at the end of the bar that's going through a divorce, and he's reconstructing his identity, and that's where you're going to be of value as a Mgtow. And you don't want to be that dick that already burned that bridge. So my message today is in self. Sometimes you have to go out of self, and you have to go talk to people that generally you don't want to be talking to. You're no longer in that echo chamber of Mgtow. You're out into the real world, and you have to portray something that generally, you just have to be nice, and it's easier than you think. You just have to be nice and not say cruel things to these people. But often I see Mgtows running around saying cruel things. You're only getting a dejector, then you're only getting a detractor. You're only getting a person that will hate you. When we run around Mgtow and we yell at the women, they love the drama. They're coming around, and you ain't never going to change them. and all you're getting is drama, and all you're getting is someone that's going to stick around here. The only way to get somebody to leave Mgtow is you just be nice to them and you continue being a Mgtow, because that pisses them off more than anything in the whole world. Because, like I said, back in, I regress to that. The only thing that they want out of you is to change you, to for you to change, to fill their concept of the world, so they don't have to be so fearful in the world. And if they had Mgtow, they wouldn't be so fearful, because they would be in touch with their inner self. And what is the inner self on us is very, very hard to. It's very, very hard to get to. And that's the process of Mgtow that we're going to have to go through. So I think I spun that around a whole big way there to get to the point is we don't need to be cruel. Just be yourself, and be intelligent, and be inquisitive to what they're saying, because in what they're saying, you will find some of the most bizarre things and some of the most entertaining ideas. But you know, answer back nicely, give them the answer, like why we're not misogynist, and why, oh yeah, I agree with you, we should have abortion, but what about fathers' abortion rights? And I agree with you, I want strong women that could take care of themselves, but in that, do they need a protector and a provider? This is the way Mgtow works. This is the Mgtow philosophy. You have to be you have to think about a lot of these things before we do them, because what we're really doing is we're trying to change the world, and we're going to only do that one man at a time. And these abhorrent laws and these horrible things that they do to men are only going to change if the whole world starts thinking like we do. And with that, you're not going to do that at the tip of a spear. You could be the tip of the spear, and that could be a really nice spear where you where you where you just explain yourself, and you be the best person you can be. And that's what Mgtow is about. Mgtow is about being the best person you can possibly be, the best man you can possibly, the most masculine man you can possibly be, the most intelligent man you can possibly be, and being comfortable with yourself, being able to live in this skin and this world. And that's what's truly important. And that's where you're going to find the magic. And that's where you're going to find yourself. And with that, I think I'm going to go lay down again, try to get I got my ice pack freezing up for my knee, and I want to put that back on and get some of the swelling down, and put my leg up and watch a movie, or better yet, I think I bought a new book yesterday, and I'm going to put that on and listen to it for a couple hours and maybe doze off. Dougie's fed. He got his half a chicken today. Because I'm considerate, and I am his owner, and he should thank God that I am his owner, because nobody else in this world would take care of a blind and deaf dog, and they would get rid of it in a heartbeat. And that's the way I used to be as a person. I used to be that person, that cruel blue pill person, that I would have just took Dougie out in the garage and ended it for him, and I would have dropped him off in the woods and never thought about him again. But today I'm a better person, and that's 100% Mgtow. And it took a long time to get there. It really did. To change this old heart, to be I was so long in the blue pill world that it took a while to come out and be a Mgtow and be a better person. And that there's slow process. And I hope that I get to grow more, and I hope I have a couple more years in here where I can get to that godlike stature and see myself as the best possible thing on this world. But that in itself is an endless journey, and that's what your Mgtow will be, an endless journey of becoming better. And getting in touch with yourself would take some deep, deep, deep introspections. And that's where we start. We look at it, we deconstruct it, we reconstruct a better person. And we reduce all these things to their basic elements, and then we sit and we laugh and we point on the Mgtow bench while we're drinking Jamaican coffee in our little worlds that are perfect and perfectly constructed for what we want, not what anybody else want, not what I do for the V. And I don't validate myself through that. And I don't say my manliness could ever come from a woman, because it could never come from a woman. It comes from me deep down inside. And self is important, but them are some questions we're going to have to deal with here in Mgtow. What is yourself? And that's a hard question. Is it your individualism? Is it your fancy hat? Is it? I don't think so. It's much deeper than that. That's all I wanted to talk about today, guys. Most of all, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for Mgtow, and I'm grateful I have a bunch of just really groovy guys like you all around me, and some place to talk, and somewhere to air these somewhere to air these thoughts that I have. There'd be no other place in the world that you can air the thoughts that I have in public or with a woman, because she wouldn't understand. With even most guys wouldn't understand what you're talking about. And that's why it's important to have Mgtow, so we can bust through these things and get to our true selves. And the first person to get to their true self, you win. And you'll be the winner of the race. Well, we'll all be like, woo, Jim got there. Woo, he was the first. And you will become some kind of god. I'm sure lights will just come out of you, and you will see it all perfectly the way it is. But until that happens, we'll just keep on trudging along. And I can only do that if you guys are around. And most of the day, I'm just grateful for having this. And with that, thanks a lot, Mgtows. Thanks a lot for coming around. Thanks a lot for visiting me. I appreciate it. And most of all, thanks a lot for being a Mgtow. Mgtow.